Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games. And today we're looking at Dark Souls, the board game, a game by Steamforged Games that's based on the computer game franchise of the same name. It's a dungeon crawls miniatures game where you and up to 3 other players, if you so wish, work together to defeat a boss at the end of the dungeon. Every monster you slay in the way gives you souls, which you use as both currency to level up your character, to purchase new equipment, and to upgrade your equipment. Now, the game is supposed to last between 90 to 120 minutes. However, I think that's only the case if you are one of the game's designers and you know it inside out. For the rest of us normal human beings, the game lasts a lot longer than that. First off, this game is beautiful. The computer game is a grim, medieval-style fantasy horror, where the protagonist faces off against demons and monsters of all shapes and sizes, and the board game has that and the atmosphere of the computer game down to a T, from the heroes to the monsters, to the art style, to the incredible bosses in the box that are taken from the computer games in the series. The very first thing that greets you when you open the box is a black background with the words, "You died," which is not only an impressive piece of fan service for lovers of the computer game, but it's also an indicator of how difficult the game is going to be. The board game, much like the computer game, is hard. Very bloody hard. And like the computer game, a lot of trial and error is going to be prevalent in this game. The game can be played in 2 ways. You can select a mini-boss dungeon followed by a main boss dungeon for a one-off scenario, or you can play the campaign, which, to be honest, in my opinion, barely warrants the name. The plot of the computer game is famously minimalist, and the board game is no exception. The campaign in the game touches upon the locations and bosses in Dark Souls 1 and 3, but beyond the satisfaction of defeating the bosses in the game on the tabletop, there is no major story to be had here. There's no damsel to rescue, world-saving treasure to unlock, or land to be saved. Merely an evil that needs to be defeated, which, although it doesn't really impact upon the gameplay, it's an element I find that I often miss. Fans of the computer game series may expect this, but board gamers who are unfamiliar with the IP may be caught unawares by this minimalism. So, don't purchase this game if you're seeking an in-depth story like Gloomhaven or Warhammer Quest. However, if you are a fan of one-off objective-based scenario games like, say, Doom, where it's the fight that's fun and that interests you most, or a fan of MMORPGs, and that style of game where the grind is part of the fun, then this definitely is a game you'll enjoy. The production values are superb. The miniatures are easily the most impressive part of the game, but every part of the game is of superb quality, from the board to the cards to the dice to the player boards themselves. The boards themselves are big and thick and double-sided, although they do come across as a little samey, unfortunately, as the colour palette is predominantly grey, and the game suffers for it. One board tends to just blend into another as you play, and there is repetition in this game, as you often end up playing the same dungeon tile over and over to save up souls so you can level up and equip yourself for the main boss. Now, there are parts of the computer game that take place in grassy areas, in underground fire pits, snow-covered areas and castle ramparts, all of which could have been used in this game to introduce just a bit more variety to the game boards. Now, I get that it's part of the atmosphere, but the grey palette, combined with dungeon repetition, makes this game a bit of a grind, unfortunately. I will, however, praise one thing about the boards, and that is the node system that it utilizes. Now, depending on the size of the character, up to 3 miniatures can share the same node or space. If another character sweeps into a full node, it shoves one of the characters off to an adjacent node. And this makes the combat both fluid and dynamic. It's not just two characters going toe to toe and dice chucking. Range and reach is a huge part of the combat of this game. Now, the nodes also make the movement and attack pattern of the enemy miniatures more dynamic, as it gives them freedom and the ability to literally shove players around the board. Now, of course, different colored nodes, of course, mean different things, but predominantly they're just indicators of where bosses go or where items and traps are placed, and that, sadly, is the only major difference between the boards. On a standard board, there's 14 nodes, and on a boss board, there's 15. It allows for mobility, but it does feel like playing the same tile over and over and over again. The player boards are superbly designed, however. They're nice, thick cardboard with indents to mark both stamina and health. And as a character takes damage, red cubes are added from the right, and as they get fatigued or exhausted, black stamina cubes are added from the left. Now, if all the slots on this part of the board are filled, or stamina and health cubes meet, then the character is dead, and the players must start again. White cubes, of course, signify levels that the character has attained. Equipment slots and upgrade slots are clear, and the level up stats are clear as well. Now, there's a spot for the Estus, Luck and Ember tokens on the board, and the square cubes are a great way of seeing at a glance how badly hurt or exhausted you or other players are, and how powerful they are as well. Now, the graphic design of the cards suit the theme of the game perfectly, and there's a nice variety of them, from treasures to loot locations to boss pattern cards. The miniatures, however, are what steal the show, and these are quite frankly amazing. The boss figures alone are superb, and they paint up supremely well. And in the hands of a master painter like our colleague Daniel O'Regan, they look incredible. Now, if you're a hobbyist that enjoys painting figures, then you're in for an absolute treat with this set. They also bring the board game to life, as they command the spaces very well, and the sheer size of the bosses gives a great sense of foreboding and epicness to a boss fight. Now, the box also comes with a very good storage system to keep these figures safe, and they all come in one solid piece, so there's no assembly required. So, unlike a Warhammer game, you can literally play with these pieces straight out of the box. I'd normally like to speak more about the game than just the combat, but essentially that is the cusp of this game. Beyond the challenge posed by the varying fights and bosses, there isn't much more to Dark Souls. Now, don't get me wrong, it's done incredibly well, and because of the high difficulty level, the stakes are very high, which heightens players' investment in each other, but that's it. If you're in the mood for a team-based, tactics-based game against a difficult opponent, this is a good game to play. But it is a question of how often you're in the mood for that type of game. And if the Dark Souls skin or theme is enough to keep you interested, the minimalist approach echoes the computer game. But for a board game, I feel we need something more. The components of the game and the art style goes above and beyond to capture the atmosphere of the game, but minimalist is minimalist. It works for a computer game, but not a board game. Now, it's a game that, while it does have a lot of replayability, it does feel like a grind as well. Now, you can skip areas to get to the boss, but once you've played a few games and gotten used to the hero characters, the only thing left to play for really is the boss characters. Other dungeon crawlers like, say, Descent or Silver Tower or Gloomhaven have enough background and lore to bring you back to the table. The characters are fleshed out a little more, and you can empathize or invest in them more. But in Dark Souls, the characters are merely titles. The minimalist approach, although ties in with the style of Dark Souls, hurts this game. I can't help but wonder if the campaign was fleshed out more, would I have actually enjoyed it more? Now, if you're a person who relishes a good challenge, and isn't pushed about lore or is enough of a Dark Souls fan to properly appreciate the minimalist approach of this game, then this is one you will probably very much enjoy. And despite my criticism of this game, I did have some very memorable and incredible moments playing this game with friends. The sense of tension and indeed the sense of victory when beating a difficult challenge comes across is very much there. But like all good things in life, you have to earn it first. So if you're happy enough to play the same dungeon tile 2 or 3 or 4 times in a row to prepare for a dungeon boss, then this isn't going to be a major complaint for you. But for me, incessant combat without story becomes repetitive, and my sense of victory at the end of a game is limited because there's no context beyond that the monster is there and we beat it, and that's it. There's nothing more to sweeten the victory for me. This is a game, if you see it, do definitely try it. You will get value for your invested time out of it, and if it's a game that appeals to you in the combat style and versatility, then certainly you will get more enjoyment out of it than the average gamer would. But it's not a classic, and because of its game length, it's not a casual romp either. This is a game you will dedicate a lot of your gaming night to, and if you're prepared for a solely combat-based dice-chucking experience, then you can't go wrong with this game. But unless you get, say, 3 other like-minded people who are happy with a predominantly combat experience with minimal story and a high-stakes challenge, then I can't see how you will play through the entire campaign and every boss that this box has to offer, unless it's on a solo run. So essentially, that's it. It's a great game for combat. And if combat's all you want, then this is the game for you. This is Sean from The Lucky Roll. If you enjoyed this review, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And until next time, good luck and God bless.